Freedom doesn't automatically produce formation. Survival ends, becoming doesn't. Most people don't realize this, but they're not actually living, they're surviving. Have you ever woke up already tired, moved through the day on autopilot, handle what's in front of you, and call it progress? But deep down, there's a quiet question. Is this it? Surviving looks responsible, looks productive, and even looks successful. And it is to get you to safety. But internally, it feels heavy, repetitive, and unfulfilling. Here's the truth: thriving isn't about doing more, achieving more, and moving faster. Basically, measurements of action. It requires something far more uncomfortable: a permanent shift from who you think you are, how you see yourself, and how you move through life. What's going on, my curious and intellectual people? Welcome back to Intrigue and Insights, where deep conversations meet everyday life, looking beyond the obvious to uncovering meaning, challenge assumption, and find wisdom in places most people overlook. In this episode, we're breaking down the difference between surviving and thriving, and more importantly, the internal shift you need right now if you want to establish real growth, real peace, and real fulfillment. You're no longer in danger, but you're still making defensive decisions. Most people leave survival physically, but stay there mentally and emotionally. It's like a soldier who came home from war, but his mind didn't. The environment changed, but his instinct hasn't. I use this as an illustration because it's more relatable for others to understand. But where I learned it from is from the context of prison. As humans, most of us tend to see it from the perspective when others are doing it. You know, the guy or the girl who just came home from prison or war, when we say they're still shell shocked or they have PTSD. But a lot of people are living like that right now. They've left the toxic situation, they've outgrown the struggle. But mentally, emotionally, and behaviorally, they're still in survival mode. Now, it took me to get locked up in prison to realize that I was mentally incarcerated for years. Now, after rehabilitating myself, I come to realize that many people are mentally incarcerated, but they never come to that realization because their behavior, their mentality, or their emotions never landed them to imprisonment. Now, for me, I guess you could say, external or tangible presence of what the extent of my mentality caused me to be in, I was able to grasp it physically because I was physically there. But for some of us, when the outcome is not that visible, we still tend to miss the concept that we too can be prison minded. This is why I stated the phrase in the beginning: freedom doesn't automatically produce formation. There must be a transition from a life spent merely on hardship to a life focused on continuous growth, evolution, and personal development. This implies that survival is a temporary and exhausting phase aimed at managing stress and trauma, while growth is an ongoing, lifelong process. Life didn't just happen to you, it's forming. You are always being formed. The question is whether it's intentional. Is it according to your core values, beliefs, and your identity? Every experience, what you consume, who you spend time with, how you respond to stress, and what you tolerate is like a sculpture. Over time, it forms your habits, your beliefs, your emotional patterns, your sense of identity. So life isn't neutral, it's active. It's always doing something to you. You don't get to opt out of being formed, but you do get to influence how you're formed. If you're not intentional, your environment takes over. Algorithms shapes your attention. Social circles shapes your standards. Stress shapes your actions, and repetition shapes your identity. And you end up becoming a collection of defaults. But if you are intentional, you flip that dynamic. You choose inputs that aligns with your values. You question beliefs instead of inheriting them. You act in ways that reinforce who you want to be, becoming a deliberate design instead of an accidental outcome. So, at the beginning, I told you that my imprisonment is what helped me to recognize my mental incarceration, how I wasn't free mentally, basically what I'm saying. So, in that rehabilitation, I had to unlearn and relearn. I had to evaluate a lot of foolish thinking, behavior, concepts, principles that I believed and lived by. And I had to renew better and more positive and more productive and effective ways to live in society. One of the things that I did, which is why I'm mentioning it right now, is relatable to this topic. I chose not to be conformed to the prison institution by behaving, acting, and speaking in ways that they did that will let you know that by my verbiage and attitude and concepts that I just came from prison. We have to do the same. This is what I mean by your environment will take over. I chose then not to allow my environment to take over. And this is still a principle that I practice today, not to allow exterior things to basically shape me outside of who I believe and feel God has called me to be. This is when you start taking active ownership of your life by making decisions that align with your core value and your future self. Rather than settling for a life shaped by circumstances, habits, and external expectations. We are all products of our environment or have been institutionalized some form or fashion. But have you ever used that phrase, this is just the way I am? Or have you lived or act the way that others say you should act? Most people operate from circumstances. They say, I went through this, so this is who I am. Some may even call it your truth. Or I feel this way, so this is how I act. All in the name of keeping it real. But choose who you're becoming flips the model. It says your current patterns are not your identity. It's just evidence of what you practice. Most people are trying to change their life by changing their behavior, but they're keeping the same identity. Real transformation doesn't start with what you do. It starts with who you decide to become. When you choose who you're becoming, you're no longer asking, what do I feel like doing today? You're asking, what would the version of me I'm building do in this moment? For example, if you decide I'm becoming someone disciplined, then discipline isn't something you try when you feel motivated. It's the standard you operate from, regardless of how you feel. You don't find your future self, you choose them. And every decision is either reinforcing your identity or it's pulling you away from it. You survive for a reason. Now, become on purpose. Survival saves lives, but formation shapes it. So, the real question isn't, what do I do next? It's, who am I becoming? And is this decision aligned with that? Remember, clarity doesn't come from easy answers, but from the courage to ask the hard ones. So stay curious, stay open, and keep looking deeper. And if this video has helped you in any form or fashion to recognize that you were in survival mode and pulled you to want to be in thriving mode and gave you any type of help, tools, clarification, or motivation to take the next step from moving from reaction of survival to intentional formation, or if it just pointed out the fact that you have been formed by life, circumstances, and you now want to be in control to intentionally move towards your core values, beliefs, and purpose and goals, click that subscribe button. Follow me and share. Let me know what you think. Go into the inbox, share on the comments, anything. Peace.